The unfinished canvas, a painter's return to Jade Creek. The 6 o'clock summer sun cast a final golden hue over the gate of Jade Creek Village, washing everything in a brilliant orange. A small taxi slowed on the narrow concrete road, pulling up to an old house nestled in the shadow of an ancient longan tree. Mr. Hartley, the painter, opened the car door and inhaled deeply. The air wasn't thick with the grey exhaust of the city, but fragrant with damp soil, dry straw, and the pure scent of jasmine blossoms. The large, ancient crepe myrtle at the entrance bloomed vividly, like a living oil painting, welcoming him. White and yellow butterflies fluttered, showing off their delicate wings in the afternoon breeze. Hartley, a man in his 60s with a weathered appearance and a faded khaki jacket, carefully lifted several large, wrapped canvases from the boot. "Oh, Mr. Hartley is back. Let me carry those for you," a cheerful voice called out. It was Sam, the son of Mr. Dennis, a kind neighbor, and yet the very man Hartley had spent years avoiding. Sam, a tall young man with a gentle smile, possessed the honest simplicity of Jade Creek's residents. Hartley managed only, "That's very kind," before Sam swiftly grabbed the 2 largest canvases and carried them into the yard. Hartley slung his worn leather backpack over his shoulder and followed slowly. His back was slightly hunched, not from age, but from the habit of leaning over an easel. He radiated a sense of solitude, misplaced amidst the deeply familiar scenery. A motorbike zoomed past behind him, a gruff voice calling out, "Mr. Hartley, back so soon." Hartley didn't recognize the distinct voice. His hectic life elsewhere had dulled his ability to recognize familiar local tones. Sam neatly placed the canvases in a dark corner of the storage room, then excused himself. Hartley tried to stop him. "Thank you, Sam. Stay and have a drink." Sam politely insisted he had to leave quickly. Watching Sam's hurried departure filled Hartley with a sudden, unprompted sense of shame. Just as Sam disappeared, another figure arrived. His hair was scorched by the sun, his face dark, but his chubby arm swung in a friendly gesture. It was Mr. Dennis, Sam's father. Hartley recognized him instantly. He was the same simple, earnest man Hartley had resented, even scorned, for years. Dennis sat down comfortably on a simple bamboo chair, speaking warmly. "It's been ages since you were back. Must be busy with your work and the traveling. It's good to be home, even just for a visit." Mr. Terry, Hartley's younger brother, emerged from the house. Terry was a severely disabled veteran who had lost an arm and struggled with daily life, yet his face was always cheerful. He brewed jasmine tea, the fragrant steam filling the small courtyard. Hartley poured a cup for his guest. He took a sip, the gentle bitterness spreading across his tongue. "I'm here today, gone tomorrow. Never really settled." "I guess there's no real joy in that," Hartley sighed, looking out at the yard. Dennis took a careful sip, putting the hot cup down. His voice was sincere. "You must be painting a lot lately. This time, you should paint our village." Mentioning his homeland silenced Hartley, as if touching a painful, old wound. He offered a strained smile, sipping his tea, searching his own heart. It was true, he had never painted a serious piece about Jade Creek. In his youth, he'd done small sketches tied to vague, broken memories. Now a renowned painter, his perspective was utterly different. He was steeped in the vibrant, massive architecture of Europe and the sublime landscapes of foreign lands, which he had painted dozens of times, each piece passionate and critically acclaimed. But his homeland remained a vast emptiness, a subtle rejection. "You travel everywhere, Mr. Hartley, but you don't care about the village." Terry's words weren't meant to torment his brother, but they chilled Hartley to the bone. He felt the accusation pierce his soul. His eyes welled up, the shame intensified. Terry, not waiting for a reply, shifted the subject. "The wall bordering your land, next to Mr. Dennis's house, collapsed last year. He helped rebuild it solidly. Your empty house, I checked last year, was leaking badly. Mr. Dennis and his son helped fix the tiles to prevent further decay. They never asked for anything. That's true neighborliness. Disabled as I am, I can't do much. Terry, despite his hardships, had ensured his two children were well educated. He and his wife cared for Granny Rose, their mother, who was nearly 90 and beloved for her cheerful nature. It was because of this mutual affection that the villagers readily offered help for difficult tasks, like wall building or roof repair. Hearing his brother's heartfelt words, Hartley looked at Dennis, overwhelmed with embarrassment. He had been spiteful toward this honest, longtime friend, even avoiding him. Hartley knew his scorn had extended to other villagers, whom he found coarse or common. He felt alienated, pushing away his neighbors, and slowly, his homeland. Thank you, Mr. Dennis. Truly, a rush of surprise and gratitude burst from Hartley's heart, awkward yet sincere. It's nothing, Dennis laughed, waving his hand. We're neighbors, brothers. We've always had to look out for each other, depend on each other. The young ones all leave, and eventually, it's just us old folks left here together. Hartley's heart tightened with old wounds. He realized he was utterly defeated by Dennis. The man who had stayed, rooted to the village, was full of forgiveness, holding no grudges. Hartley, conversely, clung bitterly to the past vague and hard to judge. In their youth, Hartley and Dennis both loved Daisy, the most beautiful girl in the area. The willow lane, lined with willow trees leading to the river dike, was their romantic spot full of wind and bright moonlight. Hartley, talented and romantic, was confident Daisy would be his. Daisy admitted to being touched by his romance, but she ultimately chose and married Dennis. Since that year, while countless peaceful seasons and festivals passed, a storm raged in Hartley's heart. Hatred, spite, resentment. Even after moving to the city, marrying, and establishing a successful career, he never forgot. A decade or so ago, Dennis had asked Hartley twice for 40 centimeters of his land, stretching 20 meters long, to widen the alley, but Hartley refused out of stubborn pride. Later, Terry convinced his brother to yield. Hartley angrily snapped, "Do whatever you want." Respecting the neighborly bond, Terry secretly gave Dennis the land to widen the alley. When Hartley returned and discovered this, he was furious, scolding his brother and pointedly avoiding Dennis. Now, Dennis's simple decency melted Hartley's arrogant ice. A slow shuffle announced the arrival of Granny Rose. Returning from a visit to a distant part of the hamlet, she heard the chatter and guessed her eldest son was back. She greeted him effusively, "My big boy is home. Did you bring your wife and children?" For years, she affectionately called her eldest son my big boy. She took joy in this, feeling her life was always cheerful and peaceful. After exchanging greetings, she sat next to Hartley, showing him a small bag containing an herbal liniment. "Look at this. Young Dennis gave it to me. He told me to rub it on my arm. I tripped the other day and hit a tree branch. People here are wonderful, caring for each other so much." Speaking of community care, Granny Rose looked at Dennis, then turned to her son. "Our family is blessed to have good people like Mr. Dennis, my big boy. You're far away. Terry and his wife are always running the market. If Mr. Dennis hadn't looked out for me, I don't know what I'd do. That's why I say, when you're far away, kindness is the most valuable thing." "Mother, how did you fall? Is it serious?" Hartley asked, alarmed. "It's nothing," Granny Rose shook her head. "Just a minor bump. Besides, my dear, even if it was serious, the deep bonds of neighborly love lighten the burden. That day, so many people came to check on me, as if it were a matter of great importance. Bless them, I feel completely well now. Oh, why didn't you bring your wife and children? This is their husband's and father's home, and my home. The ancestors' graves are here. My wife and children are busy, Mother," Hartley replied sheepishly. His mother passionately praised the village spirit, leaving Hartley gaping. He felt utterly disconnected. The simple warmth of human connection, where people truly cared, from wedding feasts and funerals to university acceptance and successful livestock sales, was missing from his life. People greeted each other warmly on the street, shaking hands. The elders sat playing chess, chatting about everything under the sun for hours. Hartley had traveled widely, spending months in southern cities, constantly meeting new people, the cruel, the vulgar, the opportunistic, the deceitful. He lived in high-rise apartments where neighbors were cold. Upon returning home, doors were locked. There was no tradition of neighbors rushing to check on the sick, sharing a simple cup of tea. His second wife, Mrs. Lynn, was utterly cold. She avoided neighbors and didn't even bother to check on his aging mother's health. When he mentioned it, she'd frown. Everyone handles their own business. Where was the deep, familial warmth? Over time, Hartley grew distant from his wife, caring little for her family, sometimes indifferent to news of his in-laws' illnesses. This time, he'd planned for his wife and son to join him, but they refused. The tension strained him. Sometimes he considered leaving her, but he pitied their two children. His son, Mark, was especially starved for connection, his soul scarred. He, too, had hoped for love, only to be betrayed, sitting listlessly like a wilted cucumber vine in his pain, a mirror of Hartley's youthful resentment. Dennis's voice brought Hartley back to the present. Hartley turned to him, his voice thick with emotion. "I've been away from home and rarely returned. I have truly wronged my mother and my neighbors. Being away for so long has made me old-fashioned, or perhaps simply ignorant. I never imagined our village preserved such beautiful traditions. Mr. Dennis, I apologize for the times I was unkind to you." Relief washed over Dennis. The lifelong farmer spoke with a simple eloquence that eased everyone's hearts. "There's no need to apologize. We grew up together, sharing beautiful memories of childhood, chasing girls, and then serving in the army. Terry and I were in the same unit, eating dirt and sleeping rough, marching under bombs and bullets together. Terry saved my life twice. I owe you both so much. Nothing compares to human affection. It's what brings us together, makes us help each other. Only affection lasts and truly comforts us, Granny Rose and my friends." Mr. Dennis speaks so warmly, Granny Rose clapped her hands. "I don't know how rich people are elsewhere, but here in the village, we greet each other with smiles and handshakes. During New Year's, we visit every house. It's wonderfully joyous. I hear things are fading elsewhere, but not here. Our ancient trees still stand, our relics are intact, our communal house is beautiful. Maybe that's why our village culture is so strong." In the afternoon, Dennis invited Hartley to bathe in the family pond. It was the first time Hartley had done so in decades. The cool, refreshing feeling soothed him. Emerging, he felt completely revitalized. The star fruit tree in the yard chirped with birds returning to their nests. Talking to Dennis, Hartley felt his own narrow-mindedness. Hearing of his return, Mr. Thwan from the outer hamlet brought his 12-year-old daughter to ask for advice. The girl loved drawing. Thwan also brought a gift from his garden, a rooster and some fresh herbs. Thwan was completely at ease, but Hartley felt awkward. Years ago, Hartley, riding his motorcycle, had argued with Thwan after a minor collision, raising his voice and acting annoyed. Thwan hadn't forgotten, yet he was here, showing he didn't want a petty quarrel to interfere. Hartley was secretly delighted the village had a young girl passionate about painting. "She's a lovely girl. Pursuing art is tough. Later, you should encourage her to apply for applied arts. Society needs that, and she can paint whatever she wants for pleasure. Yes, please advise us. We hope you can guide her later," Thwan replied. While they talked, Mr. Bick and Mr. Tho also arrived. The simple wooden furniture, which Terry placed under the ancient longan tree, became a cheerful gathering spot. Under the village's ancient trees, any spot could be a meeting place for children and elders alike. Listening to the village jokes and stories, an idea for a beautiful painting sparked in Hartley's mind. He didn't need to travel far. The simple, heartfelt life and rich emotional culture of this land were moving enough a true treasure. That night, Hartley walked down the willow lane with a few neighbors. The path was the same, but the willows of his youth had been harvested for wood. The new saplings were now thick as a man's forearm. Hartley wished he hadn't blocked his own way home, so he could have enjoyed these wonderful things all those years. However, as they reminisced about the willow lane, a high-powered street lamp flickered. Dennis suddenly grew serious, pointing towards the end of the lane where it met the big field. "The willow lane isn't peaceful anymore, Mr. Hartley. Strangers come regularly to measure the land, claiming it's for a big city project. They want to fill in the old drainage ditch at the end of the lane. That ditch drains the large field. If they fill it, all of Jade Creek Village will flood next rainy season. We've argued with them many times." Hartley's eyes sharpened. The old drainage ditch. It wasn't just a matter of irrigation, it was the critical boundary line Dennis once wanted to widen his alibi, the request Hartley had refused. Had his refusal inadvertently created a legal loophole? Just then, a black, unmarked pickup truck flashed its headlights directly at the group. The light was blinding, challenging. Inside, a man in a black suit and sunglasses calmly tapped on his phone. "That's Mr. Lamb, the notorious land clearer for Golden Empire Corp," Dennis whispered, sounding worried. "They claim the Willow Lane land was sold to them by you long ago, and they have the papers." Hartley was stunned. Sold land. He had never sold his homeland. "What papers?" Hartley asked, his voice low. "They say it's the 40 centimeter strip of land you refused to sell me 10 years ago. They claim they bought all the unclaimed land at the end of the lane, including the ditch and that disputed strip." Hartley felt struck by lightning. 40 centimeters of land, which he had used to nurse his petty resentment, was now the fuse for a disaster threatening all of Jade Creek. He saw his reflection in the truck's window glass, an aged, wrinkled face, his eyes blazing with a long-extinguished fire. He had blocked his own path home, and now his own arrogance threatened to destroy the Willow Lane itself. He had to act. The climax and resolution in Jade Creek. The night of the outdoor exhibition, Jade Creek, Eternal Beauty, arrived. The Willow Lane glittered under the lights. The entire village, along with 100 of city guests, media, collectors, and critics gathered. Mr. Hartley stood center stage beside his largest canvas, the Eternal Ditch. It was more than a landscape, it was a testament to humanity, its dense brushstrokes saturated with emotion and repentance. The exhibition was going well until a major news channel, invited for a favorable review, suddenly broadcast a bombshell report. Kenneth Tran, Hartley's former apprentice, had sprung his media trap. The segment started with Hartley on stage, followed by a recorded interview with Mrs. Lynn, Hartley's city wife. She stated they had been separated for a long time, called Hartley a selfish, cold husband, and claimed his return to the village was just a cheap PR stunt to mask his marital failure. The recording was followed by commentary from Kenneth Tran, who claimed to know Hartley best. "Mr. Hartley always runs from the truth. He left because of petty grudges, and now he uses his homeland as a tool to polish his ruined reputation. His goal isn't to save the village, it's to save his own ego." The effect was disastrous. The stage lights exposed Hartley nakedly to the public. The media buzzed, guests whispered, and support for Hartley collapsed instantly. "Fake PR, hypocrite," the murmurs swelled. Hartley stood frozen. The pain of watching the villagers' disappointed faces surpassed any physical agony. Mark, Hartley's son, rushed the stage, attempting to grab the microphone, but it was too late. In the chaos, Granny Rose appeared. Leaning on her cane, her face was strangely serene. She slowly walked onto the stage, taking Hartley's hand. "My big boy," Granny Rose said, her voice devoid of anger, full of compassion. "I heard it all. They're right, my dear. You were a poor husband, a neglectful father." Hartley lowered his head, ready for the humiliation. But Granny Rose gripped his hand tighter, her voice ringing across the willow lane, quieting the crowd. "But, my dear, they are wrong. A man can be a poor husband, a poor father, but that doesn't mean he can't be a good son, a good villager." She turned to face the cameras, her eyes blazing. "My son, the painter Hartley, left his home for 30 years. He was narrow-minded and selfish, using success to hide his wound. But today, he returned. He didn't return for money or fame. His fame is being ruined right now. He returned because he realized the price of solitude and the price of his narrow-mindedness. He may have been a poor husband to Mrs. Lynn, who chose not to understand him. But he is a son trying to protect the water and land of his ancestors. He stands here to atone, to save the drainage ditch he unknowingly endangered. A person's virtue lies not only in their small family, but in actions for the greater good." Granny Rose's words, simple yet profoundly philosophical, silenced the crowd. Terry and Dennis stood side by side, teary-eyed, applauding. The final canvas. Granny Rose saved his honor, but Kenneth still held the advantage. The exhibition was disrupted, investors withdrew, and large papers vowed to investigate Hartley's moral failures. Yet, Granny Rose's words healed Mark and solidified Hartley's resolve. "Dad," Mark said, his eyes now determined. "We can't win the media war. We have to win the legal and historical war." Mark, using his tech knowledge, found the legal loophole. Golden Empire Corp. had bought land usage rights from an authorized community representative 10 years ago. This representative had vanished. "We need proof that the drainage ditch is not just a ditch, but a historical and feng shui boundary established centuries ago," Mark insisted. Hartley suddenly sprang up. "Not the big paintings, not the famous works. The sketches." He tore into his storage room, frantically searching old boxes. He recalled that, in his youth, he had sketched the willow lane and the ditch during romantic trysts with Daisy. These sketches, artistically worthless, were the only remaining evidence of the ancient boundary. After hours of searching, Hartley found a dilapidated leather-bound notebook. Inside, scribbled in the shaky pencil of a young lover, were not the grand strokes of a master, but clear drawings of the willow lane and the drainage ditch. Accompanying them were his naive poems to Daisy. Crucially, one sketch precisely showed the 40 centimeter disputed land. Beneath it, Hartley had written, "Dennis says this is an ancient boundary. If filled, it will break the dragon vein. I don't believe him. I only believe in Daisy's love." The 19th year flood season. Even in his romantic poetry, Hartley's arrogance and refusal to listen were evident. He dismissed Dennis's concerns about the ancient boundary because he was too focused on his own ego. Hartley needed confirmation for the sketches. Only Daisy and Dennis could provide it. Dennis saw the notebook, his eyes tearing up. "Yes, the lane and the ditch. I told you so, but you wouldn't listen." Daisy placed her hand on the notebook, pointing to the poem. "This is proof of your love, Mr. Hartley, and proof of the truth." Mark created a digital three-dimensional 3D map, overlaying the ancient sketches onto the current land survey, proving that Golden Empire Corp. had deliberately purchased a sliver of unclaimed land to break the historical boundary and cause flooding. However, Kenneth Tran launched a final decisive blow. Capitalizing on Hartley's tarnished reputation, Kang bribed local officials and ordered the immediate filling of the drainage ditch that very night. Dennis rushed back with the frantic news. "They're here. They brought the bulldozer." All of Jade Creek woke up. The night was pitch black. The roar of machinery echoed down the Willow Lane. Hundreds of villagers, led by Dennis, Terry, and Hartley, rushed to defend the ditch. The confrontation unfolded under the glaring headlights of the bulldozer. Kang stood atop the machine, giving orders. This is historical and legal evidence. Hartley held up the ancient sketchbook. Kang sneered, an old notebook from a washed-up painter. Do you think the village will believe your fake romance, Hartley? Dennis stepped forward, standing directly in front of the bulldozer. He didn't speak much, simply stared at Kang. We don't need to believe Mr. Hartley. We believe in this ditch. This ditch has sustained and protected us for hundreds of years. To fill it, you must walk over my dead body. The bulldozer stopped. The workers hesitated. Kang, furious, prepared to confront them directly. Suddenly, Mark appeared. He had found Kang's broadcasting setup and began live-streaming the entire confrontation to social media, complete with the 3D map of the historical boundary. Within minutes, thousands of city residents and media outlets were watching the standoff. Under immense public pressure, and with irrefutable legal evidence, Hartley's old sketches, Dennis's testimony, and Mark's 3D map, Golden Empire Corp., was forced to retreat. Kenneth Tran failed, not just legally, but because he underestimated human affection. He used Hartley's selfishness to attack, but didn't foresee that Hartley's repentance would forge an unbreakable community bond. The next morning, the Willow Lane was peaceful again. The drainage ditch remained, water flowing gently under the morning sun. Granny Rose hugged Hartley. You're truly home now, my big boy. Hartley had won, but he had lost. He divorced Mrs. Lin in the city, accepting his ruined reputation. But in return, he found his true home. Mark found his purpose. He stayed in Jade Creek Village, using his tech skills to help preserve its heritage and build a better flood warning system. Dennis and Daisy handed Hartley a new paintbrush. You won. Now it's time to paint the final picture, Dennis said proudly. Mr. Hartley stood before the white canvas. He didn't paint grand landscapes or vague romance. He painted people. He painted Granny Rose, peaceful under the longan tree. He painted Terry, resilient despite his missing arm. He painted Dennis and Daisy, hands clasped, smiling gently. He painted Mark, his son, standing by the drainage ditch, looking forward. He named the painting The Virtue of Jade Creek. Afterward, Hartley decided to settle in the village. He used the money from selling some old paintings to build a small community art center, where he would teach the village children, starting with Mr. Thuan's daughter. Artist Hartley spent 30 years searching the world for artistic inspiration, but only by returning home, accepting the truth, and embracing the simple humanity of his roots. Did he find the subject for his final, most profound masterpiece, a legacy of love, repentance, and courage?